Welcome to Daily Dharma Listening. This is a quiet place, a slow place, a space where ancient echoes meet modern breath. If you are here, it is not by accident. Somewhere in your day, perhaps between notifications, unfinished thoughts, and the weight of tomorrow, something in you paused. Something chose to listen. In the earliest Buddhist teachings, the path never begins with answers. It begins with listening. Not to the world, but to the subtle movement of the mind itself. Before any doctrine, before any method, the Buddha invited people to sit beneath the noise of their lives and notice what was already there. This is where Buddhism for beginners truly starts. Not with rules, not with beliefs, but with awareness. Most of us live as if our minds are crowded rooms with the lights always on. Thoughts rush in without knocking. Worries rehearse conversations that have not happened. Regrets replay scenes that cannot be changed. We tell ourselves this is normal, that this is just life. But Buddhist wisdom gently asks a different question. What if the mind does not have to be this loud? Imagine a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water never clears. But if you set it down and stop interfering, the mud slowly settles. Clarity was never something you needed to add. It was always waiting for stillness. This simple image carries one of the most powerful Buddhist reminders when you feel lost. Peace is not something you chase. It is something you allow. In modern life, we often search for techniques on how to stay calm and positive. We download apps. We read headlines promising instant relief. Yet anxiety persists because calmness is not a surface condition. It is rooted in how we relate to our thoughts. Buddhist lessons for anxiety do not tell you to force happiness or suppress fear. They teach you to see thoughts as passing weather, not permanent truths. A thought arises. I am not enough. Another follows. I am running out of time. We believe them because they speak in our own voice. But Buddhism teaches that thoughts are events, not identities. Just as clouds do not own the sky, your thoughts do not own you. When you begin to see this, something loosens. Space appears. Breath deepens. The mind begins to transform, not through struggle, but through understanding. This is how you begin to find peace in chaos. Not by controlling the outer world, but by observing the inner one. The chaos may remain. Deadlines still exist. Relationships still challenge you. The news still shouts. But you are no longer pulled into every wave. You stand on the shore, aware, present, grounded. Ancient Buddhist teachings often speak of the middle way. Not indulgence. Not denial. Balance. In daily life, this balance looks like knowing when to engage and when to step back. It means protecting your energy, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. When the mind is constantly overstimulated, compassion dries up. Patience thins. Joy becomes conditional. To protect your energy is to protect your capacity to be human. There is a quiet strength in living without fear. Fear narrows perception. It convinces you that the present moment is unsafe, even when it is not. Buddhist wisdom does not promise a life without uncertainty. It offers something deeper. The ability to remain open even when certainty dissolves. This openness is courage in its purest form. Consider how often we postpone living. When things settle down. When I have more clarity. When I am less anxious. Buddhism gently interrupts this habit. Life is only ever happening now. The mind that waits for perfect conditions never arrives. The mind that learns to rest in imperfection discovers freedom. To transform your mind is not to become someone else. It is to stop being ruled by automatic patterns. Each moment of awareness weakens old habits and strengthens new ones. Over time, what once felt overwhelming becomes workable. What once felt permanent reveals itself as temporary. This is not philosophy for monks alone. This is practical wisdom for crowded trains, difficult conversations, and restless nights. As you listen, you may notice resistance. The mind may say this is too slow, too quiet, too simple. That voice is also something to observe. Buddhism for beginners often begins with this discomfort. Stillness can feel unfamiliar when the nervous system is used to constant stimulation. But stay. Listen a little longer. Silence is not empty. It is alive. If this space feels meaningful to you, if these reflections resonate somewhere beneath the surface, you are warmly invited to stay connected with daily Dharma listening. Subscribing allows these moments of stillness to return to you again and again. Liking and sharing this space helps others who may also be searching quietly, without knowing where to look. In the coming parts of this series, we will explore different facets of Buddhist teachings as they apply to modern life. Each lesson will stand on its own, like a lantern along a dark path. You do not need to rush. You do not need to remember everything. Simply listen. Let the words pass through you like water through open hands. For now, rest here. Notice your breath. Notice the space between thoughts. Nothing needs to be fixed in this moment. Nothing needs to be achieved. This is the beginning. Part 2. The Art of Letting Go. In the quiet corridors of our minds, where thoughts accumulate like dust in an unused room, the practice of letting go begins. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It is the soft, almost imperceptible movement of releasing what no longer serves the heart, the mind, and the spirit. Buddhist teachings have long emphasized this art, not as a one-time act, but as a continual unfolding, a gentle return to simplicity. In every breath, there is an opportunity to release, and in every observation, a chance to notice how tightly we cling to ideas, desires, fears, and identities that are not truly ours. Consider how often life binds us to expectations, external validations, and imagined outcomes. We carry them as if they were bricks, heavy and unyielding, shaping our posture, our speech, our very way of moving through the world. The mind becomes a cage, and yet we look around seeking freedom outside ourselves, unaware that liberation is already within. Buddhism for beginners teaches that the first step toward freedom is noticing the cage and understanding that the bars were self-constructed, layer upon layer, with attachments we rarely question. Letting go is not the annihilation of thought or desire. It is not abandoning life or renouncing joy. It is a subtle discernment, a recognition that clinging produces suffering. Like the river that flows without holding on to the water it carries, we too can learn to experience life fully while releasing the need to possess, control, or define it. When we learn to let go, we cultivate a spaciousness in which the heart can breathe, the mind can observe, and the spirit can rest. The act of releasing begins with awareness. Notice the moments when irritation, disappointment, or anxiety arise. Observe the stories your mind tells to justify holding on. Perhaps a resentment towards someone who wronged you, or an expectation of perfection in your own actions, or the fear of the unknown that prevents you from moving forward. Each thought has its own momentum, and each has its own weight. By simply observing without immediate reaction, the first layer of attachment begins to soften. This is how we find peace in chaos, not by controlling the external world, but by transforming the internal one. Every day presents opportunities to practice letting go. In conversation, we may release the need to be right. In relationships, we may release expectations that others behave according to our desires. In the mind, we may release the habit of endlessly replaying past mistakes or anticipating future fears. Each small release is a thread untangled from the fabric of suffering. Gradually, the mind lightens, clarity emerges, and even in the midst of life's inevitable uncertainties, we learn how to stay calm and positive. Ancient Buddhist wisdom often speaks of impermanence, not as a theory to be intellectualized, but as a truth to be felt and lived. Everything we encounter, people, circumstances, possessions, emotions, is transient. Recognizing this impermanence allows us to let go of attachment and fear. To protect your energy is to honor this truth, to stop investing in what drains vitality and distracts from presence. Life does not ask us to control the river, it asks us to learn how to float and navigate with awareness. When we let go, we also cultivate compassion, for ourselves and for others. Holding on too tightly can create judgment, frustration, and inner tension. The mind that releases can extend patience, understanding, and gentleness. We begin to see that the struggles of others are reflections of universal human challenges, and our own struggles are not unique punishments, but invitations to practice. Transform your mind, and the world shifts not because it changes, but because you see it differently. Letting go is especially relevant in moments of anxiety. Buddhist lessons for anxiety remind us that fear often arises from identification with fleeting thoughts or imagined scenarios. We hold on to narratives that amplify suffering, and in doing so, we prevent the natural flow of life. By observing, acknowledging, and releasing these thoughts, we step out of the grip of compulsion. We learn to breathe into uncertainty rather than resist it, to embrace impermanence rather than fight it, to trust that even in surrender, there is a form of mastery. Even as we practice, resistance will appear. The mind may argue, if I let go, I will lose myself. Yet Buddhist reminders when you feel lost offer a gentle truth: you never lose yourself by letting go. You simply uncover what was always present beneath the layers of fear, expectation, and attachment. Beneath all the stories, judgments, and compulsions, there is a mind capable of clarity, a heart capable of warmth, and a being capable of profound presence. The practice of letting go extends to ordinary life, in ways both subtle and significant. Perhaps it is releasing the desire to control outcomes at work, or the tension in a family dynamic, or the clinging to an identity that no longer serves your growth. Each moment of letting go is a microcosm of liberation, a practice in living without fear. We learn to ride the waves of experience with steadiness, not by pushing against them, but by moving with their rhythm. Like a tree bending in the wind, flexibility does not signify weakness, it signifies resilience. Letting go also deepens appreciation. When we are not clinging to the way things should be, we can see the way things are. Small joys, unnoticed before, reveal themselves: the warmth of sunlight, the sound of rain, the cadence of a loved one's voice. Life becomes a series of invitations rather than a set of obligations. In this space, the mind that once grasped frantically begins to rest, and the heart that once ached for permanence begins to feel the gentle joy of presence. The ancient masters often spoke of detachment not as indifference, but as attentive care without clinging. We learn to engage fully with life while understanding that attachment is optional. This is how Buddhist wisdom manifests in daily life. This is how we live fully without being consumed by what arises. By releasing, we protect our energy, we preserve our clarity, and we nurture our capacity to respond rather than react. As you move through the day, notice the tension between holding on and letting go. Notice the impulse to control, the desire for certainty, and the fears that arise uninvited. Gently, consciously, practice releasing one layer at a time. Each act of letting go is an act of love toward yourself and toward the world. In these quiet moments of surrender, the mind discovers its natural ease, the heart discovers its inherent generosity, and the spirit discovers its boundless space. This is the art of letting go, simple, continuous, transformative. It is not achieved in grand gestures, but in everyday awareness. The cup that empties can be filled anew. The mind that releases can be nourished by insight. The life that surrenders can find freedom. Each breath is an opportunity. Each observation, an invitation. Each thought, a possibility to release and to rest. Here, in the act of letting go, the essence of Buddhist teachings unfolds not as doctrine, but as lived experience, a path that leads inward to the stillness, the clarity, and the freedom that has always been waiting. Part 3. When nothing is certain, everything is possible. In the hush of early morning, when the world has not yet remembered its name, there is a sacred kind of silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of grasping. It is in this fragile, luminous space that truth can sometimes be heard, not as a voice, not as a doctrine, but as a gentle awareness. And in that awareness, a strange paradox unfolds. When nothing is certain, everything is possible. This is not a riddle to be solved, but a doorway to be entered with the quiet steadiness that Buddhist teachings offer, again and again, to those willing to let go of certainty and walk into the open field of presence. Certainty is seductive. It gives the illusion of safety, a scaffolding around which the mind can organize its stories, fears, and ambitions. But Buddhist wisdom teaches that clinging to certainty is like grasping a cloud. No matter how tightly you hold, it slips through your fingers. What appears solid one moment changes the next. Life shifts, people leave, plans dissolve, identities fade. And the more we resist this truth, the more suffering we create. The more we expect the world to remain still, the more we find ourselves exhausted by its natural movement. Yet what if uncertainty was not the enemy? What if it was the teacher? The breath does not demand guarantees before it flows. The tree does not resist the wind because it does not know where it's going. Life itself unfolds in uncertainty, and the deeper we enter the Buddhist path, the more we are invited to soften into that truth. Not with resignation, but with reverence. Not with fear, but with curiosity. Buddhism for beginners offers this as one of its earliest lessons, not to seek control, but to understand impermanence so deeply that we no longer need control. In your own life, you may notice how often anxiety arises from trying to predict the future. The mind races ahead, building scenarios, bracing for disappointment, preparing for a fall that may never come. This is the habit of fear. But Buddhist lessons for anxiety do not promise escape. They offer refuge in reality. They say, come back to this moment, to this breath, to this step. You do not need to know what happens next in order to be at peace now. You only need to be here. This is how you begin to live without fear, not by knowing all the answers, but by surrendering the need for them. When the mind no longer demands a fixed outcome, a deeper kind of intelligence emerges, one that sees clearly, responds compassionately, and trusts the unfolding even in darkness. To find peace in chaos, we must stop looking for escape routes and begin to build temples in the center of the storm. Stillness is not somewhere else. It is what arises when we stop running from the unknown. Each moment becomes a doorway when we stop resisting its shape. A missed opportunity is no longer a failure, it is space for redirection. A painful ending is no longer a punishment, it is the soil for new growth. This is how to stay calm and positive when the ground beneath you shifts. Not by pretending everything is fine, but by knowing that nothing needs to be fixed for you to be fully alive. Buddhist wisdom whispers this truth in the simplest ways: sit, breathe, observe. There is nothing you need to add to this moment to make it enough. In your relationships, uncertainty will test your ability to love without conditions. In your work, it will challenge your attachment to results. In your self-image, it will reveal the fragility of every label you've ever worn. But in each of these areas, uncertainty is not trying to harm you, it is trying to wake you up. To protect your energy in these moments is not to shut down, but to remain open without losing your center. To walk through the fog without needing to see the whole path, only the next clear step. Consider the lotus. It does not bloom in clarity. It emerges from the mud, from darkness, from places we would rather avoid. But it does not resist. It rises slowly, with trust. This is the way of the path. You do not need to know the full shape of your healing. You only need to keep rising. One breath. One choice. One gentle act of presence at a time. And when you feel lost, as you surely will, the teachings do not scold you. They embrace you. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost are not about finding answers, but about remembering that being lost is a part of the way. The map is drawn in hindsight. The meaning is revealed in reflection. But the walk itself, the stepping, the falling, the standing again, that is the path. That is the practice. That is enough. The beauty of not knowing is that it invites us into wonder, into creativity, into humility. In the space where certainty dies, freedom is born. No longer confined by what must happen, we begin to discover what could. Possibility returns. Hope breathes. And even amidst uncertainty, the light of awareness flickers gently, unwavering in its compassion. You may not know what comes next. You may be holding questions too heavy for words. But within you, as in all beings, is the capacity to sit with the unknown and not flinch. To meet life as it is, not as you imagined it would be. To soften the edges of control and allow grace to enter through the cracks. Transform your mind, and the world does not need to change. Your relationship with uncertainty becomes less about fear and more about faith, not blind faith, but a grounded trust in the impermanence of all things. Nothing lasts forever, not your sadness, not your confusion, not even the questions you carry. In time, what is unclear becomes illuminated. Not all at once, but steadily. Like moonlight rising over water. This, then, is the quiet revolution offered by Buddhist teachings. Not a call to fix the world, but to see it more clearly. Not a demand to have all the answers, but a practice of remaining present in the absence of them. And in this presence, in this still and spacious awareness, you discover something astonishing. Even when nothing is certain, you are okay. Even when the path disappears, you are not lost. Even when everything you knew begins to fall away, what remains is enough. So breathe. Come back. Let go of the demand for certainty. Let yourself be carried by something wiser than control. Let yourself be held by the silence between thoughts. And in that space, you may find what you didn't know you were searching for, not safety, but serenity. Not answers, but awareness. Not a destination, but a return to the deep, vast, luminous center that has been waiting, always, for your arrival. Part 4. The quiet power of presence. There is a kind of strength that does not announce itself. It does not rush, it does not demand attention, it does not compete. It simply is. This strength is presence. In Buddhist teachings, presence is not a technique to be mastered, but a state of being remembered. It is what remains when the mind stops wandering into regret and anticipation, when it rests fully in the simple truth of now. Presence is quiet, yet it has the power to transform how life is experienced, moment by moment. Most suffering arises not from what is happening, but from where the mind goes while it is happening. The body may be here, sitting, walking, breathing, but the mind is elsewhere, replaying old wounds or rehearsing imagined futures. This division fragments our energy. We feel tired not because life is too heavy, but because we are never fully where we are. Buddhist wisdom gently invites us back, again and again, to the only place where life actually unfolds. Presence begins with attention. Attention to breath, to sensation, to the subtle movements of thought. Not to control them, not to judge them, but to see them clearly. When you truly see a thought arise and pass, its power weakens. It no longer defines you. It no longer drags you into reaction. This is one of the most practical Buddhist lessons for anxiety. Anxiety feeds on unconscious identification. Awareness dissolves it without force. In the modern world, distraction is constant. Screens glow, voices overlap, information never rests. We are trained to divide our attention until it becomes thin and restless. Yet peace does not come from managing more inputs. It comes from simplifying attention. When you give your full presence to a single breath, a single step, a single sound, the mind begins to settle. This is how to stay calm and positive without pretending that life is easy. Calmness arises not from denial, but from intimacy with what is. Presence also reveals the subtle ways we abandon ourselves. We rush through meals without tasting. We listen to others without hearing. We move through days without inhabiting them. In doing so, we leak energy. To protect your energy is to return it to the body, to the senses, to the present moment. Presence is conservation. It gathers what has been scattered. Ancient Buddhist teachings often compare the mind to a wild horse. When left unattended, it runs in every direction, exhausting itself and its rider. Presence is not the act of breaking the horse, but of gently holding the reins. Not tightly, not violently, but with steady awareness. Over time, the horse learns to slow. The ride becomes smoother. The journey becomes visible. When you are present, even ordinary moments gain depth. Washing your hands becomes a ritual. Walking becomes a meditation. Listening becomes an act of compassion. You begin to find peace in chaos not because chaos disappears, but because your center no longer depends on external order. The noise may continue, but it no longer lives inside you. Presence also softens fear. Fear thrives in imagined futures. When attention rests in now, fear has nowhere to anchor. This does not mean danger disappears. It means you respond to what is real, not what is projected. To live without fear is not to be reckless. It is to meet each moment with clarity rather than panic. Presence sharpens perception. It allows wisdom to arise naturally. In relationships, presence is transformative. Being fully with another person, without rehearsing your response or filtering their words through old narratives, creates connection without effort. It dissolves misunderstandings before they harden. Buddhist wisdom teaches that deep listening is a form of generosity. When you are present, you give the rare gift of undivided attention. In return, you receive authenticity. Presence also changes how you relate to pain. Pain felt fully moves through the body. Pain resisted becomes suffering. This is one of the most subtle yet powerful teachings. When discomfort arises, the instinct is to tense, distract, escape. But presence invites you to stay, to breathe, to observe sensation without labeling it as unbearable. In doing so, you discover that even pain is impermanent. It has edges. It has movement. It is not who you are. For those who feel lost, presence offers orientation without answers. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost do not point you toward a destination. They point you toward ground, toward breath, toward the simple fact of being alive right now. When you are present, you are not lost. You are here. And here is always enough to begin again. Transform your mind does not mean replacing thoughts with better ones. It means changing your relationship to thinking itself. Presence allows thoughts to arise and dissolve without becoming commands. Over time, this changes the architecture of the mind. Space replaces congestion. Silence appears between words. Insight emerges without strain. Presence is also deeply humbling. It strips away the drama of self-importance. In presence, there is no performance, no audience, no need to be anything other than what you are. This humility is liberating. It frees enormous energy previously spent maintaining identities and defending positions. What remains is simplicity. What remains is peace. In the teachings, presence is often described as a return, not an achievement. A remembering of what was never absent. Even now, as these words unfold, presence is available. It does not require special conditions. It does not demand perfection. It asks only that you arrive. Life will continue to challenge. Emotions will rise. Thoughts will argue. Circumstances will shift. Presence does not remove these realities. It changes how they are held. Instead of being overwhelmed, you become spacious. Instead of being reactive, you become responsive. Instead of being scattered, you become whole. This is the quiet power of presence. Invisible, yet transformative. Subtle, yet profound. It does not promise escape from life, but deeper entry into it. When you are present, life is no longer something happening to you. It is something happening through you. And in this flowing awareness, in this grounded stillness, you begin to understand something essential. You were never meant to live in fragments. You were meant to live here. Fully. Gently. Awake. Part 5. Walking the path without rushing. There is a deep exhaustion that comes not from effort, but from hurry. The kind of tiredness that sleep cannot cure, because it lives in the mind rather than the body. Modern life praises speed, efficiency, constant forward motion. We are taught to arrive quickly, to optimize every moment, to measure our worth by progress and results. Yet Buddhist teachings quietly point in the opposite direction. They remind us that the path is not something to be conquered, but something to be walked. Slowly. Attentively. Without rushing. Rushing creates the illusion that fulfillment is always somewhere else. The next achievement. The next phase. The next version of yourself. The present moment becomes a hallway, never a room. But Buddhist wisdom teaches that peace does not wait at the end of the road. Peace is the quality of how you walk. When the mind rushes, it fractures the moment. When the mind slows, life becomes whole again. Walking the path without rushing begins with a radical shift in perspective. It is the recognition that nothing essential is missing right now. You may be growing. You may be healing. You may be learning. But you are not incomplete. Buddhism for beginners often emphasizes this because the habit of self-improvement can easily turn into self-rejection. When the path becomes a race, compassion is the first thing left behind. In daily life, rushing shows up in subtle ways. Eating without tasting. Listening without hearing. Resting without resting. Even in moments meant for peace, the mind plans its next move. This constant leaning forward drains vitality. To protect your energy is to notice when speed has replaced awareness. Slowness is not laziness. It is alignment. Ancient Buddhist teachings describe the middle way, a balance between forcing and collapsing. Rushing is a form of forcing. It assumes that the present moment is inadequate and must be escaped. But when you slow down, you discover that the moment has texture, depth, and intelligence. You begin to find peace in chaos not because life becomes orderly, but because you stop fighting its rhythm. Anxiety thrives on urgency. The feeling that something must be resolved immediately, or else. Buddhist lessons for anxiety gently dismantle this urgency. They remind you that most things unfold in their own time. Seeds do not grow faster because you pull on them. Healing does not deepen because you demand it. Transformation happens when conditions are right, not when you are impatient. To walk without rushing is to trust the process of becoming. It is to understand that clarity matures through experience, not pressure. This trust allows you to stay calm and positive even when progress feels invisible. Growth often happens underground. Roots deepen long before anything breaks the surface. When you rush, you miss this quiet work. Fear often disguises itself as urgency. The fear of falling behind. The fear of being left out. The fear of wasting time. But Buddhist wisdom reveals that fear narrows time, while presence expands it. When you are fully here, time is no longer an enemy. It becomes a companion. To live without fear is not to control time, but to befriend it. Walking the path without rushing also changes how you relate to others. You become less reactive, less demanding. You allow people to unfold in their own way, just as you allow yourself. This patience is a form of love. It creates space for authenticity. It reduces conflict born of expectation. It softens the edges of judgment. There will be moments when impatience returns. Old habits do not disappear overnight. But awareness transforms impatience into a teacher rather than a failure. When you notice the urge to rush, pause. Breathe. Feel the body. This pause is not an interruption. It is the practice itself. Transform your mind does not mean erasing habits. It means meeting them with clarity instead of criticism. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often come back to this simple truth. You do not need to know where you are going to take the next step. You only need to be present with the step you are taking. The path reveals itself through walking, not through planning. When you rush, you step over wisdom. When you slow, it meets you. Slowness brings intimacy. With breath. With sensation. With thought. You begin to notice subtle shifts that were previously drowned out by speed. A softening in the chest. A quiet joy. A moment of ease without cause. These are not accidents. They are the natural result of alignment. In the Buddhist path, there is no finish line. Awakening is not a future event. It is the continuous act of showing up. Again and again. Without rushing. Without grasping. Without comparing your pace to anyone else's. Your path is yours. Its timing is precise, even when it feels delayed. If this teaching resonates with you, if these reflections feel like a gentle reminder rather than a demand, you are invited to stay connected with daily Dharma listening. Subscribing allows these quiet pauses to return to your life regularly. Liking and sharing helps others who may be walking quickly, tired without knowing why, to discover another way of moving through their days. As you continue walking, remember this. You are not late. You are not behind. You are here. And here is where the path begins, every single time. Part 6. Meeting yourself where you are. There comes a moment on the path when striving grows quiet and something more honest takes its place. It is the moment you stop asking who you should become and begin to notice who you already are. Buddhist teachings speak gently but firmly about this turning point. Liberation does not begin with becoming better. It begins with seeing clearly. Seeing without distortion. Seeing without rejection. Meeting yourself exactly where you are. Most suffering is born from a subtle resistance to the present self. The mind carries an image of how things should be. Calmer. Wiser. More disciplined. More healed. And every moment that does not match this image feels like failure. Yet Buddhist wisdom reveals a different truth. Growth does not come from standing against yourself. It comes from standing with yourself. Without excuses. Without condemnation. Without illusion. To meet yourself where you are is to acknowledge the current state of the mind without trying to edit it. Perhaps there is restlessness. Perhaps there is sadness. Perhaps there is confusion, fatigue, or quiet resentment. Whatever is present does not need justification. It only needs recognition. This is where Buddhism for beginners often misunderstands the path, believing that spiritual practice requires constant positivity. In truth, awareness includes everything, especially what we would rather avoid. The moment you allow what is, a shift occurs. Tension loosens. The inner conflict between who you are and who you think you should be begins to dissolve. This does not mean you stop growing. It means growth becomes organic rather than forced. When the soil is accepted as it is, seeds can finally take root. Anxiety often intensifies when the mind believes it should not feel anxious. This resistance doubles the weight. Buddhist lessons for anxiety offer a quiet alternative. Instead of fighting the feeling, notice it. Where does it live in the body? How does it move? What happens when you stop arguing with it? Often, what we resist tightens. What we allow begins to soften. This is not surrender to suffering. It is the beginning of freedom. Meeting yourself where you are also means recognizing your limits. Fatigue is not a moral failure. Emotional sensitivity is not weakness. Slowness is not inadequacy. These are conditions, not identities. Buddhist wisdom teaches that compassion begins with honesty. When you stop pretending to be somewhere else, you regain the energy that was spent maintaining appearances. To protect your energy is to stop waging war against your own experience. There is a deep calm that comes from this honesty. The calm of no longer running, of no longer chasing a future self while abandoning the present one. This is how to stay calm and positive in a world that constantly demands improvement. Positivity rooted in denial collapses quickly. Positivity rooted in acceptance is resilient. It does not depend on circumstances. It grows from understanding. Ancient teachings often remind us that the mind, like water, reflects whatever it touches. When the mind is filled with judgment, it reflects judgment back at the world. When it is filled with patience, it reflects patience. Meeting yourself where you are changes how you meet others. You become less reactive, less critical. You recognize shared humanity instead of personal failure. This recognition is the seed of compassion. In moments when you feel lost, the instinct is to search outward. For direction, for validation, for certainty. But Buddhist reminders when you feel lost point inward. They ask you to pause and notice what is actually happening. Lostness itself is an experience arising in awareness. It is not a verdict. When you can stay with that experience without trying to escape it, clarity begins to form naturally. To live without fear does not mean fear never arises. It means fear no longer dictates your actions. When you meet fear honestly, without dramatizing or suppressing it, you discover that it is often a signal, not a threat. A signal pointing to vulnerability, to uncertainty, to care. When seen clearly, fear becomes workable. It no longer owns the future. Meeting yourself where you are also transforms how you relate to time. You stop postponing worthiness. You stop believing that peace is conditional. Right now becomes valid. Even in confusion. Even in imperfection. This does not make you stagnant. It makes you grounded. From grounding, movement becomes skillful rather than compulsive. The practice is simple, but not easy. Again and again, the mind will drift into comparison, into self-criticism, into impatience. Each time, the invitation is the same. Return. Notice. Allow. This return is not a failure. It is the path itself. Transform your mind happens through repetition, not revelation. Through meeting, not escaping. In everyday life, this practice shows up quietly. You notice tension and soften instead of pushing through. You recognize exhaustion and rest instead of judging. You acknowledge emotion and listen instead of distracting. These small acts accumulate. Over time, they reshape the inner landscape. What once felt overwhelming becomes familiar. What once felt unbearable becomes navigable. There is dignity in meeting yourself honestly. It is an act of courage in a culture that constantly demands masks. Buddhist teachings honor this courage. They do not ask you to be more than human. They ask you to be fully human. Awake. Aware. Present. When you stop demanding that this moment be different, it begins to reveal its hidden intelligence. Even discomfort has something to teach. Even confusion carries information. Even pain has a rhythm. When you meet these experiences without resistance, you begin to find peace in chaos not by controlling it, but by understanding it. This understanding is not conceptual. It is lived. It is felt in the body. in the breath, in the quiet acceptance of what is here now. From this place, compassion flows naturally. For yourself, for others, for the complexity of life itself. Meeting yourself where you are is not the end of the journey. It is the ground beneath every step. Without it, the path becomes a performance. With it, the path becomes real. And in this reality, simple and unadorned, you discover something essential. You do not need to become someone else to be at peace. You only need to stop abandoning who you already are. Here, in this meeting, the struggle softens. The breath deepens. The mind steadies. And the path continues, not away from yourself, but through you. Part 7. Learning to rest in impermanence. Everything you have ever known has changed. Every feeling you have ever felt has moved, shifted, dissolved into something else. Even the version of you who began reading these words is no longer exactly the same. This is not a problem to be solved. It is the nature of life itself. Buddhist teachings place impermanence at the very center of understanding, not as a bleak observation, but as a source of profound freedom. When you truly learn to rest in impermanence, the grip of fear loosens, and the heart discovers a deeper kind of stability. Most of the mind's tension comes from trying to make things stay. Stay pleasant. Stay familiar. Stay under control. We cling to moments of joy as if they could be frozen. We resist moments of discomfort as if they should not exist. But life does not pause for our preferences. It flows. When we fight this flow, we suffer. When we align with it, something unexpected happens. We relax. Resting in impermanence does not mean indifference. It does not mean disengaging from life or numbing emotion. It means experiencing fully without demanding permanence. It means loving without possession, caring without clinging, living without the constant background anxiety of loss. Buddhist wisdom teaches that when you accept change as natural, you stop taking it personally. Events still happen, but they no longer define you. For many, anxiety arises from the fear that things will get worse or never improve. The mind imagines futures and treats them as certainties. Buddhist lessons for anxiety gently dismantle this habit by pointing to direct experience. Notice that even anxiety itself is not stable. It rises. It falls. It changes texture. What feels overwhelming now is not the same an hour later. When you see this clearly, fear loses its authority. It becomes just another passing state, not a prophecy. Impermanence also softens grief. Loss hurts because we expect continuity. We believe that what we love should remain unchanged. Buddhist teachings do not deny grief. They allow it. But they also remind us that love does not disappear when form changes. What ends is not connection, but expression. When you rest in impermanence, grief becomes less about resistance and more about honoring what was real while it was here. In daily life, impermanence is visible everywhere. The breath comes and goes. Sounds arise and fade. Thoughts appear and vanish. When the mind is trained to notice this, it begins to trust movement rather than fear it. This trust is the foundation of how to stay calm and positive in an unpredictable world. Calm does not come from certainty. It comes from flexibility. To find peace in chaos, you do not need chaos to stop. You need to stop insisting that it should not exist. Chaos, like calm, is a condition. It arises from causes and conditions and eventually dissolves. When you can sit in the middle of change without tightening, you discover an inner stillness that is not dependent on circumstances. This stillness is not fragile. It is resilient because it does not rely on things staying the same. Impermanence also teaches humility. It reminds you that identities are temporary. Roles shift. Titles fade. Success and failure trade places. When you see this clearly, you stop building your sense of self on unstable ground. Transform your mind means releasing identification with what cannot last. In that release, something more authentic emerges. Awareness itself. Quiet. Spacious. Unthreatened by change. Many people exhaust themselves trying to protect their energy by controlling outcomes. But true protection comes from understanding impermanence. When you know that no moment can own you, you stop bracing against the future. You respond instead of react. You engage without attachment. This conserves enormous energy previously spent on resistance. Buddhism for beginners often approaches impermanence intellectually at first. But the real teaching happens in experience. When you watch a feeling dissolve without intervention. When you notice a difficult day end without destroying you. When you see that confusion does not last forever. These moments build trust. Not in permanence, but in your ability to navigate change. Living without fear does not mean eliminating uncertainty. It means befriending it. Uncertainty is simply the absence of fixed outcomes. When you stop demanding guarantees, curiosity returns. Possibility opens. The future becomes less of a threat and more of a landscape to explore. Impermanence, once feared, becomes an ally. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often point to this truth. Feeling lost is a temporary state, not a permanent condition. It passes like weather. When you stop panicking about being lost, orientation returns naturally. The mind settles. Perception clears. Direction emerges not from force, but from stillness. Resting in impermanence also deepens gratitude. When you know that moments are fleeting, you meet them more fully. Conversations become richer. Ordinary experiences gain significance. You stop postponing appreciation. Life is no longer something to endure until conditions improve. It is something to participate in while it unfolds. This practice does not require special settings. It happens in traffic, in waiting rooms, in quiet evenings and difficult mornings. Each time you notice change without tightening, you are practicing. Each time you allow an experience to end without clinging, you are free in that moment. Impermanence is not a threat to meaning. It is what gives meaning depth. A song is precious because it ends. A flower is beautiful because it fades. A moment is alive because it does not repeat. When you rest in this truth, you stop chasing permanence and start inhabiting presence. And in that presence, something settles. The need to control softens. The fear of loss loosens. The mind becomes less rigid, more responsive. You begin to trust life not because it is predictable, but because you are capable of meeting whatever arises. This is the quiet liberation offered by impermanence. Not escape from change, but ease within it. Not certainty, but steadiness. Not clinging, but care. When you stop fighting the nature of things, you discover that the ground beneath you was never as unstable as you imagined. It was only moving, as all living things do. Here, resting in impermanence, the heart learns to open without fear, the mind learns to stay without grasping, and life continues, changing, unfolding, exactly as it always has. Part 8. When the mind stops arguing with reality. There is a quiet suffering that lives beneath many lives, so familiar it often goes unnoticed. It is the constant inner argument with what is already happening. The mind says this should not be this way. This should have happened sooner. That should not have ended. I should be different by now. Life should be easier. And with each silent protest, tension tightens, energy drains, and the present moment is turned into an enemy. Buddhist teachings point directly to this habit, not to condemn it, but to reveal how unnecessary it is. When the mind stops arguing with reality, a deep relief becomes possible. Reality does not resist. It does not negotiate. It simply unfolds. The resistance comes from the mind's expectations colliding with experience. This collision creates friction, and friction creates suffering. Buddhist wisdom does not suggest that everything is pleasant or fair. It suggests something more subtle and more powerful. Suffering increases not because life is difficult, but because we demand that it be different before we allow ourselves to be at peace. From an early point, Buddhism for beginners encounters this truth. The practice is not about reshaping the world to fit your preferences. It is about understanding how preferences, when rigid, imprison the mind. The moment you see this clearly, you begin to loosen the grip. Not because you force yourself to accept, but because you recognize that resistance has never actually protected you. Consider how often frustration arises from unmet expectations. A plan changes. A person disappoints you. Your own emotions do not behave as you hoped. The mind immediately reacts, tightening around a story of wrongness. Yet when you pause and simply notice what is happening without commentary, something surprising occurs. The intensity drops. Not because the situation changes, but because the inner battle ends. This is how to find peace in chaos. Not by organizing chaos, but by withdrawing unnecessary resistance. Anxiety thrives on arguments with imagined futures. The mind insists that something bad must be prevented at all costs. Buddhist lessons for anxiety invite a different response. Instead of debating with the future, return to the present. Right now, you are breathing. Right now, the body is supported. Right now, the feared outcome is not occurring. This does not guarantee safety forever. It offers something more practical. Stability now. To stay calm and positive does not mean pretending that challenges do not exist. It means refusing to amplify them through mental opposition. When the mind stops fighting reality, it becomes available to respond intelligently. Solutions appear more easily. Compassion flows more naturally. Energy previously consumed by resistance becomes usable. There is a common misunderstanding that acceptance equals passivity. Buddhist wisdom corrects this gently. Acceptance is not resignation. It is clarity. When you see what is clearly, without distortion, you are better equipped to act. Fighting reality blinds you. Accepting it sharpens perception. Only from a clear view can skillful action arise. This is especially true in emotional pain. When sadness appears, the instinct is often to argue with it. I should not feel this way. This means something is wrong with me. This will never end. These thoughts add layers to the original feeling. But when you allow sadness to exist without interpretation, it moves differently. It becomes fluid rather than solid. This is a profound Buddhist reminder when you feel lost. Emotions are experiences, not verdicts. When the mind stops arguing, fear loses much of its power. Fear feeds on narratives of resistance. This should not be happening. I cannot handle this. Something terrible is coming. When these arguments dissolve, fear is revealed as sensation and thought, not destiny. To live without fear does not require eliminating fear. It requires seeing it without believing its conclusions. The practice of non-argument also protects your energy. Mental resistance is exhausting. It consumes attention, drains vitality, and fragments focus. When you stop opposing reality, energy returns to the body. Breathing deepens. Muscles soften. The nervous system settles. This is not mystical. It is physiological. The body relaxes when the mind stops signaling threat. Transform your mind does not happen through winning internal debates. It happens through recognizing that many debates are unnecessary. The mind learns to rest when it realizes that it does not need to constantly judge, evaluate, and correct reality. Silence appears not because thoughts stop, but because their urgency fades. In relationships, this practice is transformative. Many conflicts persist not because of actual harm, but because of resistance to how others are. We argue internally with their personalities, their choices, their limitations. When you stop demanding that people be different in order for you to be at ease, relationships soften. Boundaries can still exist. Discernment remains. But hostility dissolves. You meet others as they are, not as projects to be fixed. The same is true with yourself. The internal argument against your own imperfections creates chronic dissatisfaction. When you stop insisting that you should already be elsewhere, self-compassion emerges naturally. Growth continues, but without violence. Change becomes cooperative rather than coercive. Buddhist teachings often use the image of the second arrow. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life. The second arrow is the mental resistance that follows. You cannot always avoid the first arrow. You can learn to stop firing the second. When the mind stops arguing with reality, suffering decreases dramatically, even when circumstances remain unchanged. This practice does not make life predictable. It makes it workable. It allows you to meet uncertainty without collapsing. It allows you to adapt without losing yourself. Impermanence continues, but it no longer feels like a threat. It feels like movement. When you notice yourself arguing with what is, pause. Feel the body. Notice the breath. Ask nothing of the moment. Let it be exactly as it is, even for a few seconds. This pause is not avoidance. It is intimacy. It is the mind touching reality without armor. Over time, these pauses accumulate. The habit of resistance weakens. The mind becomes less reactive, more spacious. Life still brings challenges, but you are no longer fighting two battles at once. You deal with what is in front of you, not with what you wish were different. In this way, peace becomes less about control and more about cooperation. You cooperate with life instead of opposing it. You move with circumstances instead of bracing against them. This cooperation is not submission. It is wisdom. When the mind stops arguing with reality, clarity emerges. When clarity emerges, action becomes skillful. When action is skillful, suffering lessens. This is not a philosophy to memorize. It is an experience to live. Here, in the absence of internal argument, there is space. In that space, there is breath. In that breath, there is ease. life continues to unfold, unpredictable and imperfect, but no longer at war with you. And in that quiet alignment, something settles that has been restless for a long time. Part 9. The freedom of not taking things personally. Much of human suffering grows quietly from a single habit so ingrained it feels natural. We take things personally. A tone of voice becomes a judgment. A delayed message becomes rejection. A mistake becomes an identity. The mind interprets events as reflections of worth, value, or failure, and in doing so, it places the entire weight of the world onto a fragile sense of self. Buddhist teachings look directly at this habit and offer a liberating alternative. When you stop taking things personally, a vast inner freedom begins to unfold. Taking things personally assumes that life revolves around you, that every action, word, or circumstance carries a message about who you are. This assumption is rarely questioned, yet it shapes nearly every emotional reaction. Buddhist wisdom gently dismantles it by pointing to a deeper truth. Life is not happening to you. It is happening. Causes and conditions move endlessly, intersecting in complex ways that have little to do with personal intention. When this is seen clearly, the grip of offense loosens. Consider how often the mind creates stories. Someone is distant, and the mind concludes you are unimportant. A plan changes, and the mind decides you are being punished. You fail at something, and the mind declares you are a failure. These stories feel convincing because they are familiar. Yet they are interpretations, not facts. Buddhism for beginners begins the work of noticing this difference between what happens and what the mind adds. This noticing creates space. In that space, emotions still arise, but they are no longer fused with identity. Sadness may appear without becoming self-pity. Anger may arise without turning into resentment. Disappointment may be felt without collapsing into shame. This is how to stay calm and positive in a world full of misunderstandings. Not by suppressing emotion, but by freeing it from unnecessary personalization. Anxiety often feeds on imagined judgments. What will they think of me? I must have done something wrong. I am falling behind. Buddhist lessons for anxiety point out how these thoughts assume a centrality that is rarely accurate. Most people are absorbed in their own inner worlds, their own fears, their own narratives. When you stop assuming that everything is about you, the mind relaxes. The constant vigilance softens. To live without fear does not require universal approval. It requires understanding that approval and disapproval are transient experiences, not definitions. Praise fades. Criticism passes. Neither touches the core of awareness unless you invite it in. When you no longer build your sense of self on external reactions, stability becomes possible. Not taking things personally also protects your energy. Emotional reactivity is draining. It pulls attention into endless loops of interpretation and defense. When you recognize that many events are impersonal movements of life rather than personal attacks, energy returns. The body relaxes. The mind clears. This is not detachment from life. It is intimacy without entanglement. In relationships, this practice is transformative. Many conflicts escalate because words are filtered through personal insecurity. When you hear without immediately referencing yourself, listening deepens. Curiosity replaces defensiveness. Understanding replaces accusation. Buddhist wisdom teaches that much suffering in relationships arises not from what is said, but from what is assumed. This does not mean ignoring harm or dissolving boundaries. discernment remains essential. Not everything should be accepted. But when discernment is not clouded by personalization, it becomes precise rather than reactive. You respond instead of retaliate. You choose instead of defend. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often include this simple reorientation. The feeling of being lost is not a judgment about you. It is a condition arising from uncertainty. When you stop interpreting it as failure, space opens for orientation to return naturally. Lostness becomes part of the path rather than evidence of inadequacy. The sense of self that takes everything personally is fragile because it must constantly be defended. Buddhist teachings point beyond this fragile construction to a more spacious identity. Awareness itself. Awareness is not praised or blamed. It observes. It includes. It remains. When you rest in awareness rather than story, events lose their personal sting. Transform your mind does not mean building a stronger ego. It means loosening identification with the one who is always being evaluated. Over time, this loosening brings ease. You still care. You still engage. But you are no longer wounded by every fluctuation. Impermanence plays a quiet role here. Opinions change. Moods shift. Circumstances evolve. When you stop taking these movements personally, you align with reality rather than resist it. You find peace in chaos not because chaos stalks, but because it no longer feels directed at you. This freedom also deepens compassion. When you realize that others act from their own conditioning, fears, and habits, blame softens. Understanding grows. You see yourself in others and others in yourself. The boundaries between personal and impersonal blur, and in that blurring, connection replaces isolation. In daily life, this practice shows up in small moments. A harsh word passes without echoing for hours. A mistake is corrected without self-punishment. A disappointment is felt without becoming a story of unworthiness. These moments accumulate. Slowly, the nervous system learns that it is safe to relax. Not taking things personally does not make you indifferent. It makes you resilient. It allows you to meet life directly, without armor, without constant defense. You become available to experience rather than preoccupied with interpretation. This is one of the quiet freedoms offered by Buddhist teachings. A freedom not dependent on circumstances, approval, or control. A freedom rooted in seeing clearly what is yours to carry in what is not. When the habit of personalization loosens, life feels lighter. You move through days with less weight. You respond with clarity. You rest more deeply. And in that rest, something essential becomes visible. You were never meant to carry everything. You were meant to experience life, not explain yourself to it. Here, in this freedom, the heart opens without fear, the mind steadies without force, and the path continues, simpler, quieter, and far more spacious than before. Part 10. Trusting the unseen unfolding. There is a deep unease that arises when the mind believes it must see everything in order to move forward. A need to know outcomes. A need for guarantees. A need to understand how every step will lead somewhere safe. When life withholds these assurances, fear appears. Doubt tightens. Yet Buddhist teachings speak quietly of another way of moving through existence. A way rooted not in certainty, but in trust. Trusting the unseen unfolding is not blind faith. It is an intimacy with impermanence so complete that resistance finally loosens its grip. Much of the suffering in modern life comes from the demand that reality explain itself in advance. We want signs, timelines, proof that our efforts will be rewarded and our pain will make sense. But life does not unfold like a contract. It unfolds like a river. Its turns are revealed only as you arrive at them. Buddhist wisdom teaches that clarity is often retrospective. Meaning emerges after movement, not before it. To trust the unfolding does not mean surrendering discernment. It means releasing the illusion of control. Control promises safety but delivers tension. The mind becomes rigid, constantly monitoring whether reality is aligning with expectation. This vigilance exhausts the nervous system. When you trust the unfolding, vigilance softens into attentiveness. You are still aware, still engaged, but no longer braced against uncertainty. Buddhism for beginners often encounters this teaching at moments of confusion. When the path feels unclear. When effort does not immediately yield results. When old structures dissolve and new ones have not yet formed. These liminal spaces feel uncomfortable because they lack definition. But Buddhist teachings reveal that these spaces are not empty. They are fertile. They are where transformation happens quietly, without spectacle. Anxiety thrives on the belief that something must be resolved right now. Buddhist lessons for anxiety gently redirect attention to what is actually happening. Right now, there is breath. Right now, there is sensation. Right now, there is awareness. The future remains unseen, but the present is workable. When the mind rests here, fear loses momentum. Trust does not require knowing what comes next. It requires staying present with what is here. Trusting the unfolding also changes how you relate to effort. Instead of pushing desperately, you act with steadiness. You do what is appropriate in this moment, without demanding immediate payoff. This is how to stay calm and positive when progress feels slow. Growth rarely announces itself. It moves underground, reshaping foundations before anything visible appears. In ancient Buddhist wisdom, there is a deep respect for timing. Conditions arise. Conditions pass. Nothing can be forced without consequence. When you understand this, impatience softens. You begin to cooperate with life rather than compete with it. This cooperation conserves energy. To protect your energy is not to withdraw from life, but to stop fighting its natural rhythms. Trust also dissolves the fear of making mistakes. When you believe that every wrong step is catastrophic, movement becomes paralyzed. But when you trust the unfolding, mistakes become information rather than condemnation. You learn. You adjust. You continue. This is how to live without fear, not by avoiding error, but by understanding that no single moment defines the whole journey. There are times when trusting feels impossible. When loss has shaken faith. When disappointment has eroded confidence. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost do not ask you to force trust. They ask you to notice the moment you are in. Lostness itself is part of the unfolding. It is not a detour. It is terrain. When you stop judging where you are, trust begins to reappear naturally. Trusting the unseen unfolding also deepens compassion for others. You recognize that everyone is navigating uncertainty, carrying unseen burdens, walking paths that are not fully visible even to themselves. Judgment softens. Patience grows. You meet others with less demand and more understanding. Transform your mind through trust is not about replacing doubt with optimism. It is about allowing doubt to exist without letting it dictate action. Doubt can coexist with movement. Fear can coexist with courage. Trust is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the willingness to move with uncertainty present. This teaching becomes especially clear when life disrupts your plans. When something you counted on dissolves. When a door closes without explanation. The mind wants answers. But Buddhist wisdom suggests that not all doors close as punishment. Some close to redirect. Some close to protect. Some close because the time has passed. When you trust the unfolding, you stop interpreting every ending as failure. Finding peace in chaos becomes possible when you stop demanding that chaos justify itself. Chaos is movement without pattern. Order emerges later. When you stay present through disorder, patterns reveal themselves naturally. Insight arises not from forcing meaning, but from allowing experience to complete itself. Trust also returns you to humility. You realize that the mind does not need to orchestrate every detail. Life has its own intelligence. This does not absolve responsibility. It contextualizes it. You do your part, and you release the rest. This balance is liberating. As you continue on this path, you may notice moments when trust appears spontaneously. A quiet sense that you are exactly where you need to be, even if you do not like it. Even if it is uncomfortable. These moments are not illusions. They are glimpses of alignment. When the mind stops fighting the unfolding, something settles deeply. If these reflections resonate, if this way of seeing feels like a gentle grounding rather than a demand, you are invited to stay with daily Dharma listening. Subscribing allows these teachings to accompany you through different seasons of life. Liking and sharing helps others who are quietly navigating uncertainty to discover a steadier way of walking. The unfolding continues whether you trust it or not. But when you do trust it, life feels less like a test and more like a conversation. Each moment speaks. Each step responds. You do not need to see the whole path. You only need to be present for the step you are taking. Here, in this trust, the mind loosens its grip, the heart softens its fear, and the journey continues, unseen, unpredictable, and quietly guided by a wisdom far larger than control. Part 11. Returning to the quiet center. There is a place within you that has never been hurried, never been broken, never been confused by the world. It is not something you need to create, improve, or earn. It has been present through every change, every loss, every becoming. Buddhist teachings often point toward this place, not as an idea to understand, but as an experience to recognize. The quiet center is not separate from life. It is the stillness that allows life to be lived without collapse. As the path unfolds, there comes a moment when seeking softens. Not because all questions are answered, but because the need to constantly search begins to dissolve. The mind realizes that clarity does not always arrive as information. Sometimes it arrives as steadiness. Sometimes it arrives as silence. Sometimes it arrives simply as the ability to remain present without needing anything to be different. Returning to the quiet center is not retreating from the world. It is meeting the world from a grounded place. When you are centered, events no longer scatter you so easily. Praise does not inflate. Criticism does not crush. Gain and loss pass through without defining who you are. This is not indifference. It is balance. Many people spend their lives orbiting the surface of experience, pulled outward by noise, urgency, and expectation. Buddhist wisdom invites a different movement. Not outward, but inward. Not to escape responsibility, but to anchor it. When you are anchored, you can act without being consumed by action. You can care without being depleted. You can engage without being lost. The quiet center is revealed whenever you stop adding commentary to experience. When you feel without labeling. When you breathe without controlling. When you observe without judging. These moments may be brief at first, but they accumulate. Over time, the center becomes familiar. You begin to trust it. You return to it naturally, especially in moments of stress. Anxiety loses much of its power here. Buddhist lessons for anxiety are not about erasing sensation, but about shifting identity. You are no longer the storm. You are the awareness of the storm. The difference is subtle, but transformative. The storm may rage, but you remain. To find peace in chaos does not mean chaos disappears. It means chaos no longer determines your inner state. The quiet center does not oppose movement. It allows movement without confusion. This is how to stay calm and positive without denial. Calm becomes depth. Positivity becomes resilience. Living without fear does not mean life becomes safe. It means you stop needing safety as a prerequisite for presence. Fear may still arise, but it is met, not followed. It informs rather than commands. In this way, courage becomes quiet, steady, and sustainable. Protecting your energy becomes intuitive when you are centered. You notice when something pulls you away from yourself. You step back without guilt. You rest without justification. You engage selectively. This discernment is not withdrawal. It is wisdom in action. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often lead back here. To the body. To the breath. To the moment. Lostness fades when you stop searching for orientation outside and begin listening inward. The center does not give directions. It gives stability. From stability, direction emerges naturally. Transform your mind is not about constant improvement. It is about remembering what does not need improvement. The quiet center is already whole. When you operate from this place, growth becomes less frantic. Learning becomes less defensive. Life becomes less about proving and more about participating. As the series continues, teachings will deepen, perspectives will expand, and questions will arise. But beneath all of it, the invitation remains the same. Return. Again and again. To the place that does not move when everything else does. This return does not require silence around you. It does not require special conditions. It requires only willingness. Willingness to pause. Willingness to feel. Willingness to be present without escape. Here, in the quiet center, effort softens. The mind rests. The heart opens without demand. Life continues with all its unpredictability, but it no longer feels hostile. It feels